Hi, so I'm Alex, and I've been working with Sajel on a Futuarchy-esque experiment for the current Filecoin retro PGF round, which is round 2 on Gitcoin. So what problems are we trying to solve with this experiment? Basically, there's a lot of proposals. There's like 150 proposals on this round, approximately. And it's not really feasible that badge holders have time to thoroughly investigate each one of these proposals. And therefore, they are at risk of like overlooking potentially like really interesting proposals. They just don't have time to like really understand properly, or at risk of overlooking proposals that should not be funded, but they don't like realize that because it's like takes time to figure out. So therefore, there's like a risk that high impact proposals are not being funded as much as they could be. And so this is an attempt to address that problem. So basically, we what we're trying to achieve is to flag proposals as high impact, i.e. gem proposals, or low impact, trash proposals to badge holders to like make the decision-making process easier. And so we're not trying to like help them decide whether a proposal is high quality or low quality. What we're trying to do is help them determine which proposals to spend time investigating. So basically, we want to help them allocate their attention and their time. And we also need to do this in a way that doesn't fundamentally alter the design of this Gitcoin round, because it's already been like set up and designed. And so it's like a very non-invasive approach, basically, given the constraints. So how do we achieve this? We basically create prediction markets which indicate if a proposal has a high chance of being a gem or trash. And so then we get predictions from these markets, and we present these predictions to badge holders during the voting process. So when badge holders are like deciding how to allocate their votes to different proposals, they basically can see like whether a proposal was flagged as being highly like likely to be a gem or likely to be trash. And so basically this can help them then go, oh, okay, this proposal the markets are saying is like really likely to be a gem, but I don't really like see it that way, so I'm just going to look into this a bit more. Basically, like I'm going to spend more time looking into this proposal to therefore get a better understanding for it. So it just help them prioritize their time, basically. And we're initially like not planning on applying this to every single proposal because there's just too many to really create markets for this round for, given the resources. So we're going to choose a subset of proposals in this round to create markets for. And then depending on how it goes, maybe in later rounds we'll expand this, or maybe in later rounds we'll even like implement full Futuarchy, because this is more like prediction markets rather than Futuarchy. So basically, the way this works is we set up 2 markets. One is to identify gems, as you mentioned, and we classify a gem as a proposal that's in the top 10% of proposals by funding amount. And we create another market, which is to identify trash proposals. And those proposals are classified as proposals in the bottom 10% of funding amounts. And so the prices in these prediction markets reveal whether a proposal is considered likely to be a gem or trash. And so, yeah, as I mentioned, these predictions are then presented to badge holders to enable them to make better decisions. And the reason why people would want to participate in these prediction markets is because if you have information that's relevant to the prediction markets, you can profit. Because if you correct the price and you're actually right, then you get paid effectively by the prediction market for doing that and contributing your information. So it's quite incentive compatible. And the way we resolve these markets is basically we pay out $1 to anyone who held gem shares for a proposal, if that proposal ends up being in the top 10%, and we pay out $1 for anyone who held trash shares for a proposal, if that proposal ends up being in the bottom 10%. And therefore, the actual price of these shares for each proposal is reflective of like the implied probability of it being a trash proposal or a gem proposal. Because if you know that you're going to get $1 if it's a trash proposal, then you're willing to pay like an amount that is equal to your like estimated probability of it being that. So the advantages of these prediction market mechanisms in general, and also in this case, are that they're very permissionless and open access, so they don't like discriminate regarding who can participate. Like anyone who has information and wants to like spend money in the prediction market and take a risk, they can participate. They're resistant to manipulation, because if you try to manipulate it, you create an incentive for someone to basically push the price back in the opposite direction and therefore correct your manipulation and undo it. and they facilitate specialization because they allow like individuals to only focus on like particular proposals. Like you don't have to, participate in every prediction market for every proposal. You can just participate in a small subset that you like really have knowledge about. Therefore, like they're quite efficient in that regard, and they aggregate information from like a very diverse set of participants. So the potential set of participants is not necessarily those who are like already in the ecosystem. It could be people who just happen to have knowledge relevant to understanding a certain proposal's impact. So in this experiment, given there's like an actual experiment, we are trying to like measure some things to evaluate it. And one thing we're trying to measure is like, are traders actually interested in participating in these markets? Because obviously it's very important that traders are interested, because if they're not, the markets don't really tell you anything. And that's somewhat a function of how much we incentivize the traders to participate in the markets. We are also interested in like how useful the badge holders actually found the prediction market prices to be. Like if they found that often when a prediction market was saying something is worth looking into, then it actually turned out to be worth looking into, well then that's a good signal. But if they found the prediction market prices were just kind of like noise, then it's like a sign that there was something wrong with this design. And so we're also interested in like how accurate the prediction markets generally are at predicting like the way the badge holders ended up voting, because it's just an interesting like way of getting a sense for how accurate prediction markets are in these contexts. So the desired outcomes at a high level are to help badge holders discover overlooked gems or overvalued trash proposals by allowing them to more efficiently allocate their attention. So we're not trying to tell them which ones are gems and trash. We're trying to highlight, like flag proposals to them so they can then go and further investigate for themselves and efficiently use their own time. And we are going to we're planning on surveying badge holders to like find out how useful they found this and what suggestions they have and what like friction points we can work on in the future. So this is a QR code you can scan if you want to join a Telegram channel where we'll be posting information on how to participate in this if you're interested. If you think you have information that you can profit from, then feel free to join this.
So I'm curious if you have experience on like, what would it take specifically in the Filecoin ecosystem, like how to get sufficient participation and volume such that this actually produces quality predictions?
Yeah, I think one important component of that is to just ensure that all of the actors in the ecosystem who could have relevant knowledge are at least aware that this exists, so then they like have the option of checking it out and seeing whether they can contribute information to it. And I think the other most important aspect of this is to like ensure the incentives are sufficient. But of course, the question is like, what counts as sufficient incentives? And I think that would kind of be a process of trial and error, where we kind of like hypothesize that maybe this amount of incentives, which perhaps has worked in other markets, is like a reasonable first start, and then we can just see how that goes and adjust it as necessary in the future based on, yeah.
I'm curious if you have any benchmarks or past experiences on like rough overhead. In Juan's like previous conception, he was like, okay, in the future, we actually want to reduce the amount of overhead to be able to produce good results.
Right.
Do you have a rough percentage of how you think about that?
Like regarding like how much it's necessary to subsidize each market? Like, is that the...
How much incentives as a function of the amount of allocation that we're going to give out is necessary to produce good insights, to be able to have good predictive value to actually deliver?
I don't have strong intuitions on this. Like, it's something that we're planning on doing a bit more like empirical analysis on, and because given these like markets are very new, there's not like that much data on what works and what doesn't. Prediction markets haven't really been used for these informational purposes very much up until very recently. So yeah, like maybe a few percentage of the value of the proposal, that could be like a good amount depending on how large the proposal is, of course, because it's like probably a lower bound where if you go below that, it's not very useful. But yeah, that's like kind of a starting point, but it's to be determined and fleshed out a bit more. Yeah, good question.